Welcome to the Joy of Cooking podcast. Each week we set the table for a discussion about recipes and stories from the authors of The Joy of Cooking, kitchen victories and misadventures, and most importantly, what we are cooking and eating right now. We're glad you've joined us at the table today. I'm Shannon Larson, home cook, ardent Joy of Cooking user and fan, and lover of sriracha on pizza.
I'm Megan Scott, co-author of the 2019 edition of The Joy of Cooking. I'm a food editor by day and avoider of dish duty by night, and I feed my cats with a golden spork.
I'm John Becker, fourth-generation co-author and steward of The Joy of Cooking, America's oldest family-run cookbook. And I like recipe testing because it means I don't have to make any decisions about what to cook at night.
True.
I'd rather take notes.
What have you been cooking this week, Shannon?
We got our grill out because it feels like it's officially summer. So we grilled just burgers. Very simple, very classic, shredded lettuce, always the way to go. And we've been doing a lot of salads from the garden because the lettuce is out of control.
Yeah, we can't really keep up with the lettuce.
I think I planted too much.
Yeah.
I know I planted too much. I was like, oh God. Okay,
we need to
remember.
split a pack next time.
Yes, because I do like to have different kinds,
Yeah.
but we don't need 6 of each kind. We need 3. So yeah, let's do that next year.
Just dress more than you think you'll eat and then pack it in.
Dinosaur time.
Yeah.
We also made the Dubu Jorim, the spicy braised tofu from Sarah On and the cookbook Uma, which we interviewed her last week. It was so good. I think that's going to be a normal on rotation recipe for us.
Yeah, for us too.
Yeah, definitely. It's a banchan, but it's perfectly wonderful as like a protein main dish type situation.
Yeah, that's how I'd eat it.
Yeah, we paired it with rice noodles and broccoli, and it was just perfect.
Nice.
Yeah. What about you two?
Well, we had a big party for John on Saturday, and we made a lot of stuff. But I was thinking about my pickle dip, my dill pickle dip that I made for the party, which is one of my favorite summer potluck and barbecue things to make. And it's really easy, and it kind of tastes like ranch dip, except it has dill pickles in it and pickle brine. But if you want to make my pickle dip recipe, you can find the recipe on thespruceeats.com. And it's really, really easy. It's just like mayo and sour cream, and then I use the Trader Joe's dill pickle seasoning. But I do give an option if you don't have that, or if you don't want to go to Trader Joe's and buy it, you can just use like onion and garlic powder and dried dill and things like that.
Nice. It was delicious.
So I use Grillo's pickles chopped up in there, which is my favorite store-bought pickle, because they remind me so much of my great-grandmother's pickles. Like, she used to put so much dill in her pickles. It was very strong dill flavor. And in the Grillo's container, you just have like big pieces of very mature dill that's like start the flowers, you know? I also made a cake, it was a chocolate buttermilk cake with raspberry buttercream. I know we were talking a couple of weeks ago about how, one cake with 2 people is just like way too much.
Yeah.
One of my friends at the gym at Orange Theory, she listened to that episode and she was like, you were so right not to bring cake into this gym because we are all trying to lose weight except for me. She was like, please don't bring cake in here.
Oh, no. I mean, the cake you made for John's party was incredible. Did you have any
really
left
well.
over?
No. The last slice. So John didn't get a slice when we were cutting it up.
No.
I don't know how that happened.
I got the last one.
But we had one slice left at the end of the night,
good.
and then he ate it. So,
good.
Yeah,
It was perfect. It was actually a pretty generous slice.
Mm-hmm.
So
it worked out.
Yeah, it worked out.
Somebody brought a cheese board to the party, so we had all these little nubbins of random cheeses, and I made Formage Fort, which is here in the middle of the table for everyone to taste.
I was wondering. I was like, okay, I can't wait.
It's basically just fancy cheese spread that you puree all different kinds of cheeses together and add enough. I used white wine, add just enough white wine to like bring everything together. If you wanted to keep it more neutral, you could use like cream or milk or something to thin it out. But it's just really delicious and easy. And if you have a cheese issue, like some of us at this table do, it's a good thing to keep in mind.
I don't know what you're talking about. There's no cheese issue here.
You're right. It's not an issue. It's just a way of living.
If listeners do need more guidance on that, we do have a basic recipe on page 55 of the 2019 edition.
Look at you with the page numbers.
No.
So good.
I'm learning.
And then let's briefly talk about our recipe of the week, our Joy Scouts recipe of the week from last week, which was creme fraiche. And as we discussed before we started taping, none of us made it.
No, the week got away from me for some reason.
I know, me too. It went really fast.
It could have been easy to incorporate that into a whipped cream frosting situation for the cake, too.
Look, I was following a recipe for the cake. Creme fraiche was not needed, but you could do that for some other theoretical cake.
It's funny because one of the dips that somebody brought did have creme fraiche in it.
Mm-hmm.
So, in a sense, we did the recipe.
Yes, absolutely.
1,000%. That totally counts. One of my favorite ways to use creme fraiche, though, is those trout toasts that I like to make that I brought camping with us that one time, where you just take a good cracker and you put creme fraiche on the cracker, and the smoked trout from Trader Joe's is so freaking good. And then you'd like top it with like Mama Lil's peppers and herbs or whatever else you want on top of it. I think a pickled jalapeno would be good too. But it's so delicious. It doesn't seem like it would make sense, creme fraiche and smoked canned trout, but it does.
No, it really does.
Yeah.
It can go savory or sweet, which is part of why it's nice to have around. Can you, for listeners who may not know what Mama Lil's are,
Oh my gosh,
describe
that's
them?
right. They're sweet pickled peppers, and they're incredibly delicious. But they're pickled in like they're packed in olive oil, so I also use the like olive oil basis for dressings and things like that as well. I guess, is that a Pacific Northwest thing?
It's local.
Oh,
I mean, I think they're nationally distributed, but it is a local company, which I didn't realize until I saw them at the Fancy Food Show last year in New York. And I was like, oh, you're from Portland? What? I had no idea. I thought everyone knew about how amazing they are. But
if you ever see them in the store, wherever you are, get them because they're great. Costco sells the large size. Just cracked those open last night.
You happen to have a Costco membership like some of us do.
Just saying.
Costco's do vary. Local ones might be more likely to carry it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But please make unlike us, please make the creme fraiche recipe on page 974. It's very easy. It is really just heavy cream and a tablespoon or two of buttermilk, or you can use yogurt, and you just let it sit at room temperature for a day or two until it thickens, and then you refrigerate it, and that's it.
You did just get that buttermilk on sale, so maybe you should make some creme fraiche with it.
Yeah, that'll use like a very tiny amount of it, but yes.
Yeah, like I bought a half gallon at the store because it was on sale.
We can make a ton of creme fraiche.
So much.
Just for penance.
All right, this week we would like to welcome Jon Washington to the table. Jon, normally I would read your bio, but since you are a average home cook, if you don't mind my saying so, would you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do and how you are involved with the people at this table.
Sure. Wow, that was freighted with meaning.
I'm sorry. That was a lot.
I love it. I'm Jon Washington. I think that was mentioned already. And I am married to Shannon Larson, the co-host of this show. And I am an average, if not the average, home cook. I like to bake. And I actually would say that the joy of cooking has been really instrumental in my growing understanding of how to cook.
Nice. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. My mother-in-law likes to say anytime I cook something that I'm becoming quite the chef.
Yes, she does say that every time.
It doesn't matter the lift or the difficulty of the recipe. I think the first time she said it, I made an apple pie from scratch, like made the dough and everything myself, and very proud of it, you know. Mm-hmm. And she's like, "You're becoming quite the chef." Yeah. And then I think Thanksgiving, I baked a turkey on my own. She's like, "You're becoming quite the chef."
You are. You're always becoming quite the chef.
Those are quite the chef appropriate things.
Yeah. It's not like she's saying it after like making a box of macaroni and cheese.
Right.
Or, grilled cheese. I mean, grilled cheese is great.
Your grilled cheese is really good.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. I think the simple things are where you can really show your knowledge and your acumen.
Yeah. Repetition, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Clocking in a lot of hours making grilled cheeses in a lifetime. You figure things out.
Do you have any grilled cheese secrets that you'd be willing to share? How do you approach your grilled cheese?
Gosh, mayonnaise on the bread was a big game changer. Yeah. I didn't do that. I used to just do butter in the pan. I don't think I have any big secret to it other than, toast the heck out of it and also putting a cover over the frying pan for a little while to get the cheese to melt all the way through, because you know, it's really unsatisfying when you pull the pieces together and there isn't cheese in the middle. You've got to really work for that.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite cheese that you use?
Ooh, I think Munster is kind of really good for grilled cheese.
Okay. Yeah, it's a go-to for us, especially with tomato soup.
I cannot remember the last time I've had Munster, and now I'm realizing the error of my ways.
There's a lot of cheeses out there to be eaten. That's all I'll say. Jon, what have you been cooking this week that you're excited about?
I think the big one probably is pizza. We did a big pizza night last night, and I tried 2 different doughs when it came to that. I did the one from the Joy of Cooking, of course, which I think the pizza dough recipe is probably our most turned to page.
Yeah, that page is real crinkly.
Yeah, especially because I touch it with flour and water-covered hands. So, yeah, it's very crinkly. It's crusted with bits of dough. The Matzo Ball Soup recipe is the other one that we open to a lot. And again, because usually the kitchen gets steamy during that time, that page is also pretty worn.
It's pretty gross.
Yeah. And the pasta dough recipe, that's also, again, flour. Hey, where was I going with this? So
things
pizza.
You cooked this week that you are excited about.
Yeah. And I have been meaning to, for a long time, do an overnight rise on a pizza dough. So I did the recipe per the Tartine cookbook, which is that's kind of where my baking technique has been developing. I like that book a lot because it's very process oriented. Yeah. I sometimes, when reading instructions, I can get tripped up a little bit in verbiage, and I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir with this, where sometimes you read a recipe and you can find yourself slipping through different cracks in terms of bringing something to a boil in the pot or bringing the water to a boil and then adding it to the pot, things like that. I can get really, I know once we had a debate over in an ingredient list, whether if it said something is a quarter cup of something chopped, is it a quarter cup after chopping or before?
Yeah, I think we texted you guys.
Yeah, we did text about that. The commas they take on a lot of meaning in recipes.
It's a load-bearing comma.
Yeah, it really is.
But yeah, you did the tartine recipe as well, and we also got a loaf of sourdough from it too. So
nice.
That was a little
That
extra.
is one of the really nice things about that book, is like that you can use the bread recipe for, like, the base recipe gets used in all the variations. Like I love the walnut bread that's in that book, and then there's like a polenta loaf with rosemary and pumpkin seeds or something. I haven't made it in forever, but it's so good.
Sounds really good.
So not only was it an overnight proofing, but it was also a sourdough.
Yeah. Would you say the pizza crust itself was very sour, Shannon?
You could taste it, but it wasn't like overwhelming. But they were both delicious. We had a friend over. She helped us eat them. Margarita on one, and then the other one had
prosciutto, Mama Lil's peppers, and cheese and tomato sauce.
Pretty simple.
Yeah.
Really good.
We're going to get into more pizza talk later in the episode.
Oh, okay.
So we should save a little bit.
Front-loading all the pizza.
Yeah. No, it's okay. We've got lots to talk about. I will go back to the Tartine book, though, because that was the baking book that finally clicked. It helped me understand sourdough. Like, I had tried a few other times and hadn't really clicked. And then I got that book, and I think all the photos really helped me, at least the first few times, because there are so many photos of the process of making the bread. Yeah. That was super helpful. I remember one time Jon and I got to meet Samin Nosrat, and we were talking to her about sourdough. It was probably the time we went to Bar Tartine or something to have dinner. So we were probably talking about that, and I was like, I love their sourdough recipe. It's so easy for me to comprehend, like, how to do sourdough in a way that makes sense. And she laughed so hard because she was like, that is a 20-page recipe, which it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, it takes a long time to get through. There's that one step where you shape it.
20 beautiful pages.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a 20-page journey. It's
yeah.
It's all photos.
It's all photos. There's like a lot of White
when you have
space.
to shape it and shape the dough and like you pull it over itself 3-4 different times and then you push the dough away from yourself and then you pull it back towards you. I always have to open to that page just to double check it. And having all those photos really, really helps keep me grounded.
Yeah, explaining things like that in words in a recipe can sometimes be, I mean, we had to do it sometimes in Joy because we don't have photos
Right.
and limited illustrations, but it's really challenging because you can, I mean, one person will read it a completely different way than another person, as we were discussing.
I feel like that does like affect our editorial choices as well. Like if we cannot communicate it in intelligible form where most people are going to, grasp the idea without reading like 5 times, then maybe it's not the recipe for us.
Yeah, although I can't remember a recipe that we just said we weren't going to have or weren't going to include because it's too tricky.
Yeah, I can't think of a particular one. I know that conversation has happened though.
You just have to work extra hard to make it clear. Yeah.
And in
Or-
testing, make sure that the people who test it, ask them about it. Like, does this make sense to you? And not really explain it to them before they try it.
Yeah.
Or maybe decide on using or advocating for a technique or a recipe that's not quite as involved, that you get 90% of the goodness of those results for something that's easier to explain. I don't know where I'm going with this.
No, that made sense to me. John, what's your relationship with Joy of Cooking? Was it a cookbook that your parents had around, or did you come to it as an adult?
As a grown-up, actually, I was thinking back on this. I was casting my memory to the past. We had one cookbook in our house growing up, and it was the Betty Crocker cookbook with the plaid cover, and it remained in the cupboard and unused. My mom kind of had a repertoire of recipes that she would go to, and if she was cooking something new, it was usually she had found an ingredient or a different protein at the butcher counter, but otherwise it wasn't like she was really exploring. And I think boiling water was the most advanced cooking technique that I really brought into adulthood.
Water-based cooking is very important.
Oh, yeah, this whole water-based cooking thing.
Yeah. Sorry, it's very of the moment. So
Yeah, this is
hearing
a very
this,
internet
yes.
thing.
It's soup, right?
I mean,
We're doing soup.
might be stew. It depends on how much water.
Or steaming.
Oh.
Steaming is
There's so much.
Maybe there
water-based.
is water-based cooking.
But yeah, I think the joy of cooking came into my life when you two came into my life.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so our friendship has kind of marked my journey as well. And I'm in the acknowledgments of the
You are.
2019 edition because I helped test recipes. And our copy is seriously like the cornerstone of our cookbook library, and it's just something I break out anytime I'm cooking something that I haven't before, or again going to specific recipes that I do over and over and over again. As has been mentioned on this podcast previously, I am a recipe follower. And so I'm very guilty of doing the thing where I look at the cookbook and it says 2.5 cups of flour, and I get the measuring cup and the flour, and then I look at the cookbook and it says 2.5 cups of flour, and then I measure 2.5 cups of flour, and then I look one more time to make sure
Just to
that
be sure.
the amount I've measured out still matches the words, because sometimes they change under me.
Obviously, your reputation precedes you as a recipe follower, and yet one of the first things you were talking about was how there are these cracks that you can slip into, like in the wording of a recipe or what have you. I was kind of curious, like how often that happens, since you're so attentive to the text. Like when you do find a crack, like what do you just do you lose faith? Do you just kind of like go chart your own path at that point, or?
No, I go down with that shit.
He goes down.
I'm not. Shannon encourages me to trust my gut
Yeah.
a lot more. I'm working on it. I definitely am catching myself before I ask certain questions of should I do this or this, and sometimes just answer it for myself. But yeah, it usually, if there's something in a recipe that isn't passing the sniff test for me, I usually have a miniature crisis and just forge ahead. I mean, a notable example I can think of is that there was a recipe online that called for using a tablespoon of salt where it clearly meant a teaspoon of salt.
Yeah.
And I think it was a go-to recipe. It was a good recipe that I liked making for, I think, lentils. And I definitely more than once put a tablespoon of salt into that pot of lentils.
I don't know if I would ever go that far, but I will go down with the ship, like from a place of vindictiveness, where I will it's like the hate cooking. Sometimes I'll just...
No one's familiar. Tell people what hate cooking is.
I think that's...
Have I not mentioned this?
Specifically you
Yeah, it's a you thing.
Well, I'll just be like, get a load of this. And then I'll just... And then, just to prove it to myself and everyone else, I'll just do what the recipe stupidly told me to do.
But then you're, eating bad food.
But there's a lesson has been learned.
Did you, contact the author?
See how bad it was?
Well, and plus, sometimes I'm surprised. Like, oh, wow. Well, that was unwarranted,
Oh, that's good.
But not mostly not.
I will say, yeah. Sometimes I feel like I'm pretty good at sniffing out when there's a problem because I've cooked so many recipes and tested so many and developed so many. But occasionally there will be one where it's like, okay, they're telling me to do this. My gut is telling me I shouldn't. And they're not explaining the reasoning. But a really good recipe will explain why you're doing a thing that maybe sounds counterintuitive. Right. Or no, actually, you want to use the entire tablespoon of salt. That's not a typo. You know?
There's a meta commentary going on. It's like, I know what you're thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really like it when recipe writers level with you and are like, this sounds weird. Just go with it. Trust the process.
Well, I think that also makes it feel like they're respecting you as a cook and as an intelligent person to be like, I know this tablespoon of salt sounds crazy, but here's why it actually works. And they're like, okay, you know what you're doing. You're just following this recipe, though.
Yeah. But when they don't say anything, then you're like, what do I do?
When I find recipes online and stuff, traditional recipes or classic recipes, and it just doesn't look right, I pull the joy out and I compare. And I'm like, you're wrong, recipe person online. You're welcome, John Becker. You look very proud.
Yes.
That's a good thing.
No, that's kind of like what we hope for, kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, we want to be there for people who, are scratching their heads when they're looking at other people's recipes, whether it's something that just goes unsaid or something that seems off.
Or even just maybe there's a recipe and it calls for an ingredient you're not familiar with, but they don't bother to explain what it is and you don't know anything about it. So you can look it up in the Know Your Ingredients chapter.
Cooking with matcha, it all starts with the right tea. And that's where you need to pick Mizuba Tea Co., sourced directly from heritage tea farms in Japan. Mizuba's matcha is crafted by award-winning farms in Yuji, Japan. Vibrant, umami-rich, and stone-milled per traditional methods. It's the top quality ingredient for lattes, desserts, and even savory dishes. Not to mention whisking on its own as a ceremonial-style matcha. Whether you're making a matcha cheesecake or dreaming of a spring matcha tiramisu, start with the best. Taste the tradition. Shop at mizubatea.com. That's mizubatea.com. And use the code JOYOFMATCHA, that's JOYOFMATCHA, for 15% off your first order.
We kind of touched on this, John, but you are a recipe follower, but what defines your cooking style? What kinds of recipes do you gravitate towards? What kinds of things do you like to make the most?
Interesting question. This is a good question. I feel like I'm tempted to defer to the subject matter expert. Sometimes Shannon knows me better than I know myself. When it comes to what I gravitate towards in recipes, I feel like variety is usually the operative word when I think of how we pick what we cook.
Yeah.
Sometimes to a fault. Sometimes I think that we want to make sure that we are stretching our horizons, that we aren't just cooking the same 5 meals over and over. And now that I say this out loud, it does take me back to what I was saying about growing up in a household where Friday was tuna casserole night, Wednesday was spaghetti night, very much a small wheel of meals that we would spin. And I
think we go too far sometimes where we should be leaning more on like those things that we really enjoy eating.
Right.
But we don't. And I don't know why. We are doing like wing night this week. John makes killer homemade wings and they're delicious and they're healthier for you because he doesn't fry them.
Are we just terrified of boring one another? I don't want to turn this into marriage counseling, but are we just trying to make sure that we're keeping one another on our toes?
I think so.
With our food choices?
I mean, we're also like a childless couple and we have the time to like cook and we enjoy cooking together, especially in the kitchen now where we have a kitchen that makes sense to cook in for two people. It's something we enjoy doing together. And then also I feel like there's a slight competition when we pick out recipes, honestly. Like,
competitiveness.
A little bit. Like we are always trying to find like really interesting recipes for the other person.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know.
I don't want to suggest something really dull to you when when that inevitable discussion of what are we eating for dinner is going to be.
But then again, like you make really good chicken thighs, and sometimes we just do that with like couscous and vegetables. That's a pretty normal recipe to go to.
Yeah.
And he makes me matzo ball soup when I'm feeling sad or sick.
Nice.
Which that
That's
is
a good
definitely
standby.
a recipe I think I've
Really
mastered over the years.
Yeah.
Any tweaks for that recipe that you would like to share, or do you just make it as is?
I think we add more celery. That's just
Yeah.
normal for us.
I've started cooking the chicken parts in the stock because it just makes the stock richer. And yeah, we hang on to schmaltz these days and throw that in. That's one of the parenthesized ingredients in the recipe. And I think that, if you have access to schmaltz, it's well worth putting in the matzo balls. It helps with the texture a ton.
Yeah.
So you were saying that you think that you guys maybe there's too much variety. Like what makes you think that? Is it just like this kind of the logistics of, shopping?
The amount of condiments we have or like random things. At one point, a friend came over and opened our fridge and she was like, why do you guys have so many jars of stuff everywhere?
We do have a lot of jars.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, it's good though.
Yeah, it's good.
No, it's
It's
great.
good to put things on stuff.
Stuff on things.
Yes.
We love stuff on things.
It is a key technique.
I think maybe the issue for it for me sometimes is I just get tired of thinking about what to cook, which I know is a normal thing for everybody. And I feel like we probably need just a list on our whiteboard on the fridge that we now have, thanks to you two inspiring me to do that, of like regular go-to meals that we both enjoy. And that it's okay to just make that every week if we need to.
Yeah, I saw that pierogi night is looming over us.
Yes,
at
because
one
we have
point or
frozen
another.
pierogies and they're delicious.
It's been a good idea to just have a few of those kind of swimming around, like the threat of pierogi night.
I put an
present in the
exclamation point
household.
behind it. I don't know why. Pierogi night.
But it's good to have the idea. I think being in Portland, we're very lucky to have the farmers markets because then over the weekend you can usually find a few ingredients that you can kind of focus an exciting meal around.
Yeah, like I went to the farmer's market and got sausages from Scratch Meats, which is a local company here. They make amazing food.
Excellent sausages.
Yeah, excellent. So we always have like some of those in our freezer. And then I got some crab cakes from the fishmonger at the market this time. And so I was like, that'll be a good base for a night where we really don't want to think about it, but I also really love fresh Dungeness crab cakes. Why not?
That sounds like an amazing surf
I
and
know.
turf situation.
Oh yeah.
Actually, I have no idea how that would work, but
be
I'm
good.
sure something could happen. An appetizer, entree, surf and turf.
How do you two cook together? Like, do you take turns picking out recipes? Do you like work on it together?
I normally come up with a meal plan every Sunday.
And then I break it.
Yeah, and then John is like, I don't want that. And we'll figure something else out.
Or I'll sign up for a recipe test, like,
Yeah.
like we did smash burgers last night, and that was a completely not premeditated thing.
Yeah, it was just a recipe test that John did for his like part-time job, and it kind of came up at the last minute, and I was like, okay, well, yeah, smash burgers sounds great.
It's the first time I've smashed a burger. The first one came apart.
Did it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I have to get out of the kitchen right now because I could feel the stress. I was like, I don't need to be in here. I'm going to let him cook. And
it was momentary.
I know, but I just wanted to give you your space and not be doing stuff and unloading the dishwasher. And,
My space is a precious commodity.
Yes. I have different strategies for coming up with ideas for what to eat. Like one strategy, so my normal meal planning process is like I look in my fridge, I write down a list of stuff that I have that I need to use. I look at the pantry, write down a few things. I look at the freezer and write down a few things. And then I try to come up with all my ideas by like putting those things together. But sometimes if I'm just not seeing the connections between the ingredients, I'll get a cookbook out or a few cookbooks, and then I'll start looking up stuff in the index like, okay, well, I have asparagus. What asparagus recipes are in here? If any of them sound good, maybe I'll make that recipe, or maybe I'll just take it as inspiration to do something else. It's more to just jog your creativity than anything.
Or you sometimes find a half gallon of buttermilk.
Or that. Yeah. Like yesterday we were grocery shopping. So they had ground lamb on sale for like $3 a pound. I bought 2 of those. And then I bought half a gallon of buttermilk because that was on sale for like $1.50. And then I was like, well, what are we going to do? So we're going to do fried chicken, and I'm probably going to make
with lamb.
With lamb? No, not with the lamb. I froze the lamb later.
Mock fried chicken. Put it in like a drumstick shape and freeze it and then deep fry.
Creative.
Yeah.
We just recently discovered you can freeze buttermilk.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. And usually we get buttermilk when we make Samin's buttermilk roasted chicken, which is our favorite. But then we always have leftover buttermilk because we don't really use it except for that. And so now we have it in our freezer.
Yeah.
I also recommend the southern cornbread recipe, Enjoy, for buttermilk.
Oh, okay, good. Oh, that's your cornbread.
Yeah, well, there's a southern cornbread, and then there's my cornbread, which is special.
Your cornbread is special.
It uses I like to combine fine cornmeal and medium grind or like stone ground. And the only thing about that is it can be a little crunchy in a way that my teeth don't love. So what I did was I soak the cornmeal in boiling water and just let it sit. Basically, I do that in the morning, let it sit all day. And then at night, I'll add buttermilk and like an egg and the leaveners. But it gives the cornbread kind of like a custardy texture in the middle. But it makes a big difference, the soaking. But it's special.
Our friend Sarah was saying it keeps better too.
Yeah, it's more moist. It doesn't dry out as quickly. So you used to do stand-up comedy. Is that okay for me to say?
Are we allowed to talk about this?
I'll allow this.
Okay, I promise it relates. And maybe this is a hard question, but do you ever apply any of the like strategies or skills that you use doing stand-up comedy in cooking or in the kitchen? Like coming up with jokes, or I don't know. I don't even know what skills you need to do stand-up.
Improvising.
I'm bad at improvising when it comes to the kitchen. I was good at improvising when I did stand-up. Oh gosh, I think that it's...
Maybe the answer is no.
I think the answer might be no. I think comedy's a very unskilled endeavor. Maybe, you know what? I can tie these things together. Maybe it's a little bit like cooking in the sense that repetition and not being afraid to try new things and understanding what works and why are all useful. I feel like I've abstracted both processes, though, that I could be describing fixing cars right now.
Well,
Sure. Fair enough.
You make cooking fun.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Do you tell jokes when you're cooking?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
Am I? Okay.
Yeah.
Huh, I guess I just sort of, it comes natural to me.
I guess so.
Oh, hello. I just wanted to take a moment to tell you about an easy way to enhance your meals. Whether they are a healthy vegan grain bowl or that late night snack we'll pretend didn't happen the next day, and that easy way is Marshall's Hot Sauce. For 15 years, chef and cookbook author Sarah Marshall has been hand-making and bottling these delicious sauces. She works directly with local farmers and highlights the lovely flavors of fresh seasonal produce. They're gluten-free, there are no additives, dyes, waxes, or binders, and they have mouth-watering combinations like serrano ginger lemongrass or habanero carrot curry, or even whiskey smoked ghost, which was featured on Hot Ones. So head on over to marshallshotsauce.com, that's Marshalls, HAUTESAUCE.com, and see all the available sauces and spice blends. Oh, that's right. Sarah's created spice packets by dehydrating and freeze-drying actual produce, so you can impart flavor into your food with more vegetables. But that's a story for another day. Find all of these delicious creations at marshallshotsauce.com and enter HOTJOY, that's one word, capital H, AUTE, capital JOY, one word, at checkout for 20% off. That's HOTJOY at checkout for 20% off. And now, back to the show.
All right. So each week we choose a topic based on caller questions. And this week we are talking about pizza. Sarah, can you read the question or play the clip, please?
Hello, longtime listener, first-time caller. I want to hear your pizza thoughts. When did it enter Joy of Cooking? What are your favorite styles to make at home? Store-bought crust versus homemade? Deep dish versus thin? No matter how you slice it, just share your pizza passions.
This person has to be a writer. That's a really well-written question.
No matter how you slice it, makes me giggle. That's so cute. Do we have pizza thoughts around this table? I don't know.
Well, I can start with the history, I guess.
Yeah, start with the history.
So yeah, 1951 edition, vegetable shortcake or pizza napoletana.
Vegetable shortcake.
Yeah, vegetable shortcake. It's a sheet pan situation. Tomato paste is spread over the dough. I don't know exactly how that works because tomato paste is, maybe it was thinner back then.
Maybe it was thinner.
I don't know. Then an olive oil anchovy paste oregano mixture is spread on top of that. Again, like the mechanics of that are sketchy.
Yeah, you kind of
two
wonder
pastes
why
on
you
top
wouldn't
of one
have just
another.
mix everything, like the
Yeah.
paste and the oil and everything together.
Yeah, because that would thin out the paste, and then it would be easier to do. But even
Irma.
Irma, God. There was no cheese, and oh yeah, sliced Italian sausage, but not pepperoni, could be substituted for the anchovy.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Have you made it?
No.
No.
You should
No,
make
it's-
it.
The hydration of the dough is really questionable. And or actually, wait, no, this one calls just for bread recipes. It doesn't get really questionable until the 1963. I actually calculated it, and it's like 42% hydration, which that is very dry.
Yeah, that's very low.
Very, very dry. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, but this seems like prime for John Becker hate cooking. Like,
Right.
I think you just need to try it.
they're family. I can't do it. I mean, I to be honest, I have done that to Joy recipes. I mean, I feel like that's part of the whole updating process. Is you know we gotta follow the recipes as they are written to make sure that to make sure they are great or suck. And but yeah, this one obviously has been our pizza recipes, like as they were handed down to the two of us, you know, in the 2006 and the 1997 edition, they're actually pretty solid. So we didn't have to deal with this. But
Any other interesting pizza tidbits from the annals of Joy history?
well, I just want to emphasize that there's no cheese in that.
I mean, some pizzas.
I know. No, I mean, they usually get like at least a topping. What is it? I'm going to mispronounce it. Sfincione? Sfincione. That's like a Sicilian pizza. Doesn't really get like melted cheese on it, but then it gets topped with pecorino and breadcrumbs. I mean, there's always something.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you know, like focaccia. You know, I guess we'll be kind and say that it's
More of a focaccia.
more of a focaccia. So yeah, 1975, the hydration of the dough gets fixed, but it's calling for like slices of cheese, which is kind of strange. And then 1997, I don't know. We could have a whole conversation about this, but they gave pizza special place of a chapter. It's like sandwiches, burritos, and pizza. And then
Wow.
this is the justification for doing that. Almost every culture has its sandwich, end quotations, whether the burritos of Mexico, the filled pita pockets of the Middle East, or the calzones, and by extension, pizzas, open-faced sandwiches of Italy. And I feel like this
None
would just...
of those things are sandwiches.
Yeah. I mean, especially the open-faced sandwich, like, description of a pizza, that would just, like, not fly on Reddit or
Oh.
anywhere. You would just be, like, completely shouted down.
Oh, yeah.
It would be bad.
I mean, people don't think hot dogs are sandwiches.
Right.
So
Let alone.
yeah, let alone.
No, I mean,
That's wild. Yeah, I feel like the 97 edition has some really funky prose in it.
it was a stretch, and I can understand what they were trying to do. You know, we used to have this brunch, lunch, and supper dishes chapter that was like this, you know, kind of grab bag of things that you might serve at lunch, might serve at dinner. And they were trying to, you know, find a home for recipes that were in that chapter. And pizza did live, I think, it did live in the brunch, lunch, and supper dishes chapter. Mm-hmm. And so they were just trying to, like, I guess it's like handheld. So there's that.
Handheld foods.
Yeah, handheld foods.
Yeah.
But that's not a very enticing chapter title.
It doesn't really give you a lot of faith reading that. I
No.
feel.
No.
But you said the pizza recipe itself was decent.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's perfectly. I mean, did it change at all between 97 and the 06?
The dough recipe didn't change. There's not too many changes. There's like a list of possible toppings in the 2006. We were able to cover more ground than the 1987, where you were just kind of like, there are like a bunch of options for red or white pies, but very specific combinations. But then again, like you just list ingredients and it's kind of, if you're not really suggesting what goes with what, then it's like, what are you ordering at Domino's? What? Anyway.
And then in the 2019 edition, we put in a chart for possible combinations rather than have a bunch of different paragraph style, variations on the pizza recipe.
Yeah. And both in those the 97 and the 2006, there was a chicken and broccoli pizza, and we did not do that again.
I have thoughts about chicken on pizza, not good ones.
I guess that's the question. So favorite pizza toppings?
When we first started getting into making pizza at home, we used the Roberta's Pizzeria cookbook. So Roberta's is a pizza place in Brooklyn, and they got really big like 12, 15 years ago, something like that. It was kind of a cool little spot. It was like at the time in a part of Brooklyn where there was just like a bunch of warehouses around, but there was this cool little pizza spot, and they had, that was where Heritage Radio Network was as well. So they had like the shipping container that was like a podcast studio that people would come, and they had all these different shows. So we made our way there and had the pizza there once. It was very good. We bought their cookbook. Their dough recipe is really solid. But they have a pizza that uses taleggio. It's a white pie.
I was trying to look it up.
Taleggio, black pepper. You pour on just a tiny bit of heavy cream onto the pizza, just a little bit.
It's called the Jesus Christ.
Yes, the
is
cheeses pizza. Taleggio is a washed rind cheese. It's pretty funky. It smells pretty funky, but the flavor is mild, I would say. But it's very melty. But on a pizza, it's so delicious. And then at the end, after you baked the pizza, you drizzle on honey. So it's a little bit sweet, a little savory.
Did you say black pepper?
I said black
Okay.
pepper.
Just making sure.
Very simple pizza, but that's one we pretty much would always make whenever we made pizza.
Yeah, and it actually, so I think there are at least 2 topping variations that we put in the 2019 where there's some taleggio involved.
It's a great cheese for
Really
pizza.
got excited about that cheese, and yeah.
Yeah.
I did not know about that cheese.
Sounds like we need to get some.
Yeah, check it out.
Yeah.
But in terms of like what kind of pizza we make, so we actually haven't made pizza in a little while, which I feel a little guilty about.
We're going to change that.
Yeah,
this
we're going to
week.
change it. We're going to
Unlike
do
the
it.
creme fraiche, we will follow through.
We're going to make this week's recipe, I promise. But we would usually use either the Roberta's dough, or then once the 2019 Joy came out, we added an overnight rise recipe.
Yeah, so just about everything about the dough recipe in the 2006 edition and the 1997 edition too. It's the same dough recipe. It's a good level of hydration, and it's just a good dough. You just need to maybe add we have a version where you just add a little bit less yeast, and then you let it rise overnight in the refrigerator.
And that gives it a really nice, I think it gives a really nice texture, like a nice chewiness.
Mm-hmm.
And for a long time, we were baking our pies in just our regular home oven. So we started with a pizza stone, but then we upgraded we got a pizza steel. So a baking steel, which is like how thick is it? 1/4 inch?
I mean, I think they sell different
Thicknesses.
Like the thicker, the more expensive. But I feel like the thickest one that is like a 1/2 inch. So maybe it's a 1/4 inch. I don't know.
Ours is not 1/2 inch, but
Yeah, it is.
oh, okay. But you preheat this. It's just a slab of steel in your oven, really, really hot, like as hot as your oven will go. And then you slide the pizza on there, shut the door, and I think you immediately turn the broiler on.
That's right.
Is that the method?
You have it at 500, and then you slide the pizza in there. You turn the broiler on, and yeah.
Huh.
So you're really
It's really
blasting it, but it turns out really, really good pizzas. But it's like a thinner crust pizza.
Right.
Do you par-bake your crusts at all?
No.
We never have.
How do you get the pizza off of the peel and onto the stone, especially once it's dressed? Because
This is a very good
I
question.
have dressed many pizzas very nicely, and then they stick to the pizza peel, and when it comes out, it's oblong, and all of the ingredients have kind of
They're
are
like on one side.
Yeah.
I wrote a whole bunch of like beginner's advice that is not in the book, but I mean, most of it's just like gleaned from watching you do it.
I'm like weirdly good at it.
Really?
So- but what I do is, I used to use cornmeal. I stopped doing that, and now I just use flour because I think you don't need cornmeal. But I'll dust the peel with flour. I stretch my dough out by holding it over my knuckles by like letting the weight of the dough stretch it out, so it kind of stretches itself out, and you rotate it over your knuckles to like get it as thin as you want. Put it on the peel, put all the toppings on, and then before I try to slide it onto the stone or steel or whatever, I give it a shake. Like I shake the peel back and forth, and if the pizza moves on the peel, it's going to be okay. If it's not moving, or you can see that part of it is stuck on.
Yeah, sometimes there's like a sticky part.
Yeah, like
And then
one
you'll-
little piece. I'll lift up the dough and then throw some flour under there.
Scoot it
and
under.
then try it again. And I do that until it's moving. You want it to like move freely around.
Yeah.
And then you shove it on there. It's kind of a practice thing. And it's also like, it's the same deal as like when you make crepes or something and you're flipping them, which feel like you have to do it with confidence. Like you have to believe that you can do it, and then you just do it, and don't because if you hesitate, that's when you mess up.
See, this is not a visual medium, but you're using like kind of a whoosh, like
Yeah.
But that's I feel like that is
Kind of like a stabbing motion.
yeah, that has screwed me up though. I feel like you shuffle it on. You just kind of like you move it back and forth, and you're just kind of like meh.
Yeah, you can do that. I don't know. I do just fully go for it. Yeah, I feel like it does smell fear. Like if you hesitate, it sticks, and then you're like, oh crap, and then you mess up even more because you're like upset that it's not working.
Shannon's nodding meaningfully at me.
I think you could use a little bit more confidence in the kitchen. That's all. You know what you're doing.
Believe in yourself.
Yeah. You got this.
I mean, I agree. I understand. Yesterday when I was making the pizzas, the quick rise dough that I did with the active yeast, that one I par-baked. And then I dressed the pizza. And that was easy. But the one where I was using the tartine recipe, I tried to do what you're describing, where I stretched it out, and I used cornmeal.
Okay.
Which
Yeah.
cornmeal doesn't seem to be working. I think you're right. Flour kind of creates more of a barrier. And also dryness, like it just dries out that bottom. I stretched it out, put it on the cornmeal, slid the pizza peel a couple of times. I'm good. And then I put the sauce and the cheese and the tomatoes on. It was a pizza margherita. And then I tried to slide, and the dough and the pizza peel were one item.
Yeah, if you let the dough sit on there for any length of time, even the amount of time it takes to put the toppings on, it usually will get a little, part of it will get sticky or stick on. So that's why after you do that, you still have to check again and then try to shove some flour under there. You just have to keep checking in with it. We got really into making pizza, and so we did eventually we have a outdoor pizza oven. It's like a propane fueled oven.
Can use wood/charcoal as well, which I wrote a huge long thing about how that doesn't work out so well when you're trying to do it for a large party.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
you
brought it
remember?
to your birthday party
Yeah.
and had to refuel it with charcoal, which means smoking up the
entire party.
neighborhood.
Yeah, the pizza was so good, though.
Pizza was
I don't think anybody cared.
a couple more notes. I would say general pizza advice: resist the urge to pile on toppings because the dough won't cook properly and it'll be floppy and wet, and that's not nice. And then if you're trying to stretch or roll the dough out and it's really springy, just like let it rest for 10 minutes and then come back to it and try again because it's not going to get any better the more you mess with it. Homemade pizza sauce, super easy to make. Our recipe in the book just uses a can of whole tomatoes you blend with a little bit of olive oil, basil, and salt. Do not be tempted to add garlic. I know it seems like it would be a good idea, but it tastes weird for some reason that I don't understand, but it makes it taste a little skunky. I don't know. It's not good.
Skunky.
That's the best adjective I could think of. Finally, my last thing is I recommend using low moisture mozzarella instead of fresh because it does. There are some certain pizzas that are really good with fresh mozzarella, so I'm not hating on fresh, but I think it's a little too wet for most pizza and it's really easy to overdo it. And then your pizza again is going to be floppy.
Prepping toppings so that they're either not too wet and also they're not going to be rendering a ton like on the pizza. That's also a good idea. So, par cooking your Italian sausage. Oh yeah, divide the labor. Everybody makes a big deal out of a pizza party where everybody can, do the toppings and whatnot. That works out pretty good. But if you have like a pizza partner or maybe two people that you're just like trading off duties with, especially if it's like an outdoor pizza oven, like if, you're probably going to need a break. Using an outdoor pizza oven in particular requires like undivided attention, like being a little tipsy or having like a good conversation, like while you're trying to watch the pizza. That's a recipe for a burnt pizza. So, just being able to switch off with somebody and then also having like some help with assembly with people that maybe aren't necessarily going to be like, ooh, well, maybe I'll try this and ooh, maybe I'll try that and are taking like 10 minutes to assemble a pizza. That would be good.
Good advice. So on that note, this week's Joy Scouts recipe is the grandma style pan pizza on page 616. You'll be relieved to know that you don't need to have any skills with a pizza peel to make this pizza because it's on a sheet pan.
Yeah, you can basically disregard all the advice that we just gave you.
Yeah, totally.
It is that simple. And it's easy to do like a double recipe if you have a crowd and however many racks you have in your oven, if you're willing to switch them around and, turn the pizzas,
You can make
you
a lot
can
of
really
pizza.
scale it up.
Does
And
this one have any specific toppings on it?
I mean, it's really up to
Yeah, it's kind of a choose your
readers.
own adventure, but this the basic recipe. Doesn't the basic recipe also have? Am I mixing this up with the other one where you put the sauce kind of on top of the cheese or partially?
It's an option. We just that is a thing, and we just like however you want to do it is good. There's no wrong answer.
But yeah, it's a little bit. The crust is a little bit thicker. It's not like a deep dish, but it's a little thicker than your regular pie. And then you choose whatever toppings you want, and it's super easy to make and feeds a lot of people.
It's perfect. And we will agree the low moisture mozzarella is the way to go. After a lot of trial and error, I think
Yeah.
we tried with the fresh, just get the low
Seems
moisture.
like a good idea.
Well, it tastes great.
Yeah.
But it's just
Yeah,
low
too
moisture.
wet.
Yeah.
Little dollops of ricotta are nice sometimes,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
but in conjunction with the low moisture mozzarella.
If you have a topic, ingredient, or joy story to share, call our hotline at 503-395-8858. Leave us a message or send us a text. We would love to hear from you. Next week's topic comes from our caller.
I moved next to a shop that sells live crabs. How do I easily cook them?
Oh man, it's a good one.
All right, everybody. What are you cooking this week?
Pierogi night. That's something that's
Exclamation
happening.
point.
The threat of pierogies.
Yeah. I also think we're doing wings.
Yeah.
We just kind of every month or so have a night where we just want to have a ton of wings. And so, yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on how to dry brine those and get those to a good spot. I like to bake them.
Yeah. They're really,
What
really good.
temperature do you bake them at?
I'm feeling very conflicted about this actually, because you can find recipes that'll tell you to go like 350 really slow, and others where they're like crank that oven to 450 and just blast them for like 10 minutes, and that really is an upsetting direction to take things in. What temperature would you bake a wing at?
I mean, I wouldn't blast them because you want the connective tissue in the wings to kind of, have a little time to mellow out, and you don't want those tips to burn. I mean, unless you're a monster and you get rid of the tips, which
I don't know
some
why you
people
would
might
do that.
I don't know.
That's my favorite part. Yeah, I think between the two.
Okay. I save my
400.
tips for stock. I remove those.
Well,
I mean, that's a fine
I
thing.
apologize.
You're not a monster.
You're a monster.
They're my
Megan
personal favorite.
Megan is partial to the tips, so we never get rid of those.
Can we try it this time?
They get very crispy.
John is also going to a pinball convention next weekend with our friend Derek. And so I will have the place to myself, which means I order in a ton of sushi and just sit and watch like When Harry Met Sally for the 57th time.
Can I come over?
Yeah, it's the best. It's so great. What about you two? What's on the menu?
Well, I got some okra end of last week for John's party. I grilled some okra.
It was so good
Yeah,
grilled.
the grilled is excellent.
Yeah.
Can thank my colleague Laurel Randolph at Simply Recipes for that idea. But yeah, it's very simple. I just put them on skewers, grilled them plain, and then served it with a tahini sauce and some chili crisp. But then I bought a lot of okra.
Right.
Didn't use it all. So I'm probably going to make mak chu this week, it's like a Cajun, originally adapted from like indigenous foodways, but similar to succotash. So it's like corn, peppers, onion. Doesn't always have okra in it, but sometimes it does. And I think okra would be delicious in there.
Right.
So I'm going to make that.
Yeah, and maybe serve it alongside some fried chicken.
That's
Oh,
the
yeah.
plan.
Fried chicken.
Fried chicken, biscuits, coleslaw, mak chu.
That sounds great. More okra.
I love okra.
I do too.
I grew up eating it, so I have nostalgic feelings about it.
It's delicious.
It's hard to grow here.
That was going to be my project for this summer, but I don't think I'm going to get to it.
No.
I've been doing a lot in the garden. I've been doing really well, but I don't have the setup. I don't have the infrastructure.
Yeah, it needs a lot of
okra.
heat.
It needs heat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to the Joy of Cooking podcast. Before we go, show some love for your favorite podcast by subscribing to the show and leaving us a review. Follow us at joyofcooking.substack.com and on Instagram at thejoyofcooking. Stay tuned for next week where we will tackle crab, and don't forget to make this week's recipe, grandma-style pan pizza on page 616. Call in with questions, hopes, history, or where you find joy in the kitchen. Our number is 503-395-8858. That's 503-395-8858.
And we could not do this without our fantastic team at the Joy of Creation Production House. Thank you to Dave Drusky, our production coordinator, Haley Bowers, our audio engineer, and Sarah Marshall, our producer.